Do you think that there are people in the world that maybe are evil, or that they have an overabundance of power that they are abusing for the benefit of only themselves, and knowing full well that they are destroying the planet in the process? Or do you think that it is purely just cultural, institutionalized, and they're just it's just a broken system that they're part of? Or do you think that there are people who are pulling strings, like making us sick, putting people in prisons, making people drug addicts? What's your take on this?
Oh man, that's a big question. Honesty and transparency, right?
Yeah.
So I think the audience can decide for themselves, but when you've got 80% of the world living on less than $10 a day in a monetary system, that's a massive disharmony. When you've got the top 5 richest people making $10 trillion between April and July of the pandemic, and then 2% of people, 150 million people, being pushed into extreme poverty on less than $2 a day, it just says that the systems are being created to create disharmony. Now, the belief systems behind that and where that's come from, that's
it's
centuries.
Deep. It's deep.
It's centuries,
really
man.
Deep.
It goes back to like the medieval ages and Roman empires of like conquering, and everything is about separation. It was like this society had to conquer this society, and then it's like it was about world dominance.
It's just I'm going to take that land and take those people. And
but then you've got indigenous cultures, and it's like the concept of land ownership doesn't exist. It's like the concept that you can charge someone for water is like it's absurd. It's like water's free. It's like how do you put that in a plastic bottle and charge someone $5 for that, and then put the plastic in the sea, and then make us pay to get the plastic out of the sea, and have young kids from green school create projects where they remove plastic from the island. It's like these belief systems where whoever's creating these enterprises, they're more worried about something that isn't meaningful at the expense of nature and other people. And I think the belief system that's missing is compassion and empathy. That's the thing. If we all started to think beyond our own front doorstep, and I was like, right now I'm feeding into your system, the lighthouse, I'm spending time here, right? And if I was on this platform and this was maybe going to take the world in a different direction, or maybe take it down the wrong rabbit hole, then I'm kind of feeding into that system. Like when I buy a juice from Wayan, I know that I'm feeding into his family business. When I buy it from the big company,
him and his family have prepared that with love, and the fruit is probably picked with love.
Got it from local sources. They're feeding into their own economy and their own community.
There's a different energy that's gone into that food.
But the point is as a consumer, I choose. When I go on Facebook, I choose. When I go on Instagram, I choose.
Question is, the thought of doing something really big is kind of overwhelming, right? And there's more often than not a paralysis in that, right? Because when you think I've got to change the world, it's like, well, that's a really big job. But the phrase I'm always saying, the quote is, it's not your job to change the world, it's your job to create the next ripple. Because we underestimate how much impact we can have by just focusing on creating a ripple, rather than I've got to do something massive to change the world. And now there's this narrative around purpose and conscious leadership, but we kind of get it in our heads from our old paradigms that we've got to go big and we've got to go hard and we've got to do this. So where do people start? Because it's a big freaking job to change the world. So does it start with people just for themselves in their own life? Where does it start?
I think there's definitely this savior complex that's going on in the world at the moment, and I've done it. I remember when I was 25 and I kind of hit that part of my hero's journey where I felt unhappy and unhealthy and disconnected, and I did everything that society told me to do, and things were just falling apart. So I was like, cool, I'm gonna do something good. So I teamed up with the Oak Tree Foundation for extreme poverty and for people living on less than $2 a day, and we went to Parliament House and spoke to the politicians and waved hands in the air and did all this stuff. But it's like ultimately that didn't make any change. It was nice for social media and photos and stuff, but with this, we didn't really change anything. So I think
bringing back to that other point, which is that's fighting the existing system.
Yeah, and it's like, again, it's a nice idea and a nice thought, but I think where we can all start is you listen to like Charles Eisenstein, you tune into, the wisdom of like the Dalai Lama and some really beautiful conscious souls, and we're in a system of like well-being and lifestyle where we've normalized it to serve from an empty cup, to live in scarcity and be proud of it, like to basically to put the oxygen mask on others before you put on yourselves. And I think the first thing we can do is realize that this concept of self-care and filling our own needs isn't selfish. Because if we learn how to really fill our own cup, we learn how to put our own oxygen mask on, then we can serve from this abundant overflow, our energy, our vibration, our resources. We can build longer tables, we can do all that type of stuff.
And that's inspiring to people. Like people see that and they get inspired.
Absolutely, and it's like,
and it might just be a feeling. It might not be I'm inspired by the actions he's taking and I'm going to follow that. It's like I'm inspired by the energy that this person is showing up with, and that's making something inside of me move.
This lady from Auschwitz, she was 97. She was, she beat COVID. And she walked out, and the whole story was about her just going for her first walk. So I posted that. And then I got a lot of negativity about this really, really positively biased post. And I became curious about what was up with that. And it was because what we've seen in the media over the last, 12 months and beyond is like this place in the world right now where this is illegal. You know what I mean? Like there's government kind of legislation.
Well, we should be wearing a mask at least.
Yeah, there's government legislation saying that you shouldn't have sex with your partner and you should, lay in bed and masturbate separately. And
there's like, even news reports about you shouldn't sing birthday songs and hug.
You shouldn't kiss your partner. I'm like, if we believe this to be true, like belief changes biology. You talk about Aubrey Marcus. I want people to tune into Dr. Bruce Lipton. He is a guy that everyone should be listening to right now. He talks about how stress is the foundation for disease. You know what I mean? If you're taught to fear connection, if you're taught to fear your natural environment, if you're taught to fear the unknown, like we know 1% of like potential viral diversity. But we're sitting here speaking with so much confidence about what we unconsciously are incompetent about, and then creating rules and regulations for people to live by.
And we think that stress is just that big kind of thing of what's going on in my life. Like my boss is giving me shit and I'm stressed about that one thing.
Yeah.
But stress is, it's living in this environment, this constant state of fear and, this narrative of everything's fucked up and...
Yeah, and I guess that's what you're doing here. This is a lighthouse, right? Like we talked about this before we came on, and it was like your whole intention is to shine the light on consciousness and conscious enterprise and a different conversation and narrative. Yeah. And I think the world needs this more now than ever because, it's if people learn to overcome fear of the unknown, fear of all this stuff, and then have the courage to find this, acceptance and gratitude for every single breath, man. Like it's like I wake up every morning, take a deep breath, and I'm like, whoa, that was a 1 in 4 trillion chance of me being here. So we're talking about numbers, and this is a really good segue because I did this post the other day, and I was like, and the Facebook world and all that, and the Instagram world and the stuff. Like I don't want to really be on there. I do my best to like tune into the Zach Bushes and the Monties and the positive bias. Every time I pick it up, there's something beautiful. But the truth is like, as marketers, that we're tuned in to basically market to people's pain points. So we're going to tell them, what they're kind of trying to solve in the context of their own life and kind of magnify and blow that up and then try to sell them a solution. So it's like, I just kind of sat there and I was like, there was this article from this guy, Hashim Al-Ghalali, and he was like 2 million COVID deaths. And I was like, every life is important. Dr. Jane Goodall shares this, right? Every life is equal and necessary. So I can't sit there and be like, don't worry about that. But I'm like, what about the 150 million people that got pushed into extreme poverty last year? I was like, what about the 7 in 10 people who are going to leave this world prematurely from a chronic preventable disease? I'm like, where in the media are they telling you that type 2 diabetes is reversible? Like that narrative doesn't exist. And then you start to question yourself and you're like, well, why? Because healthcare has become a business. you know, and it's like, I think we've lost the essence of what it means to be human, you know what I mean? And to have these environments where everyone thrives and gets their basic needs met, and there's a lack of fear, and, you know, there's a sense of harmony and inner peace.